the road that Uganda started going into when I saw them bringing Zuma. And that's why I say we must look at ourselves and see what is it that is wrong with our attitudes, with our mind. Because the whole issue was on, what are they, these people? The ethnicity. You don't know South Africa, you people. The tribal, should I call it tribalism? What is the Zuma's thing?
The nationalism,
Nkata.
really.
What are they?
Oh, they have national Mukoto.
Yeah, they have a certain, Zuma comes from a certain tribe.
Zulu.
Zulus, it had to be a Zulu. Eh? Whether he has brains, whether he had sense, and you know that man, he comes in, he's marrying a woman, he's dropping another one. You cannot manage a whole state when you are not managing your own affair, family, your private life. You can't manage even your family. And they put you to manage. I saw that they were going in reverse. I saw it there and then. And what I'm saying, it is not the number of years or whatever. You wait. It is going to go until they become like where we are now. Eh? Why we should look into our minds and say, okay, in our Africanism, what is it that we must have to change our mind and see how we can move and develop ourselves. Okay. Because, for instance, the one thing I ask here is, which disturbs me so much. You people, you were not there. When NRM came to power with 10-point program, and we embraced it so much, and then we come out with this constitution, you should have been there with us when we were traversing the whole nation. I was explaining to people what a constitution means, telling them for the first time, as Ugandans, we are together now to build our own Uganda. I would tell them the constitution of 1962, whatever was not ours, they just cut us off and built us, but we can't. Let's now build a Uganda. And I was telling them a constitution is a foundation upon which you build a nation, and if it is to be firm, then we'll discuss what it would contain. And we did all that. And we came to CA. By the way, the rural people, those people you think don't know, are the ones who recommended the term limit. They are the ones exactly. They said the problem with us is leaders who don't want to leave power peacefully. And they were resonating with what President Museveni had said and written in his book, that the problem with us, Africa, particularly Uganda, are leaders who don't want to leave power peacefully. And so the other people told us, so we said, what do? They said, let us limit their time. 10 years, 5 years, 2 terms, you finish. Okay? We said, what if you still love them? They said, yes, they should get off when we still love them so that they stay here, they don't run to be in exile. They stay here and advise the leaders who come to power. And all those, and then they told us, now that we know what a constitution is, originally, the parliament was the one to discuss the constitution. They said, now that we know what a constitution is, let us elect our new people who will go and pass the ideas we want. And all that was done, and the constitution came, and the 2 terms were there, and we were trying to build Uganda. Anybody who says that Museveni has never done any good thing in this country, me, when I see them telling me and bashing me for bringing Museveni, I tell them you are very stupid. Because NRM picked Uganda from a ditch, from down there. And we worked and came here on the ground. And we were beginning a journey of moving forward. But let me tell you, I will tell them this, and I can see you looking. Okay. I don't want the things of gender. This is more important to me. And when we went into the first parliament, the 6th parliament, Remember, prior to the Sixth Parliament, we were having a National Resistance Movement Council. For 10 years, the president was the chairperson of the National Resistance Council. Although he never used to come to chair us, but he was legally the chair. And Chigongo was chairing us. So whenever we had challenges, he would come to Parliament and chair the Parliament. Now, after making a constitution, that's why I have always said that President Museveni loved the constitution. She loved it. If you ask me, I will tell you, but she loved the constitution. One time I asked him, sir, do you care about the constitution? He said, that is the best gift I would give to Ugandans when I'm leaving. That is him telling me. Then I told him, but we don't have resources to do the constitution. Then he ordered his government, please release resources for the constitution. And when we gave him the draft, you should have seen how the man embraced it with such love. For me, I'm telling you, but when we finished the constitution and the constitution started working, that was the challenge. Because as soon as the parliament was created with its powers, the judiciary with its powers, and the executive with its powers, and then you remember who was in parliament then. We came with Bujagari, the Bujagari issue. You see, this man has never failed to condemn the Sixth Parliament. It is the Sixth Parliament, when we started implementing the Constitution, in other words, implementing constitutionalism, that he realized that, his power over the people has left him. And that was the beginning of the problem. Because we refused a certain company which was coming to do Simanyi Bujagari Falls, because it was corrupt and we were investigating. We refused. That's when President Museveni said, but what is a constitution? It is a mere paper repeating what President Museveni had said at one time. You go read the history of Uganda. From that time he said, I will fight this parliament until I win it and take it over. And he started, he fought it, 7th parliament, he fought us, we left. On 8th parliament, he said, now I have got it. You go and buy my book, you will see. So he got the parliament, he captured it, it is in his pocket. So the whole issue is power, 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 wanting power. Africans wanting power, not to use them to serve the people. Let us look, that is the main issue. We are capable of changing ourselves if we can understand
Dr.
what it is that disturbs us.
I have bought the book. It's 50,000 out there. I'm buying a copy. This is the second book I'll be buying, that is Dr. Matembe's. So we are going to request the people responding to also shorten, and the people asking questions or making comments to also shorten the answer. Let me start with Major. Move forward here, and let's not exceed 2 minutes. It's time for plenary, but the presenters can.
Yeah. Thank you.
You had one for Dr. Lumumba.
Mine is form of a question for Professor Lumumba. My name is Major Retired Awich. I'm also an advocate, I'm a lawyer. My question is in respect to what you said about liberators tending to have a tendency of entitlement. I happen to have been NRA and a child soldier's dad, a Kadogo. This thing of law, I did it when we went back after the war. Now, my view is that I don't seem to see it in NRA because the commanders that we had, and even the ordinary soldiers, we had a kind of what you call, for want of better words, indoctrination. The ideological clarity was so firm, including people like General Muntu. These are people who committed class suicide. They had a good family background. They were university graduates, but they have not amassed any wealth, and they are many. In fact, you see many of them apparently looking good when they hold offices. If you want to know they have not stolen, let them leave offices. On the contrary, Professor, we think that the body politics will join later, especially as the party or as the movement transformed into a party and attracted more civilians in the body politics. It is where, to us, we think there's a problem. And the senses that diversion that we see are there. But I cannot dare tell you that each and every commander with modest background, with education, they were all graduates in the, many of them were graduates in the bush. But they have not. So I tended to think that the generalization of self-entitlement was not evident for us in NRA. In fact, many commanders tended to step aside and watch, and there are many. You can even detect in their lifestyle who is driving which Land Cruiser, who has built what. So is it true that these liberators have that sense of entitlement when we actually see them even suffering?
Thank you. It's good you confess to being one. Professor Ndebesa?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make a quick rejoinder to Professor Mumba's seemingly tendency to advise Africa to be slow. After all, the life of African states is still young and we still have a long way to go. I want to submit that the Latin American countries have been independent for the last more than 200 years. Haiti, one of them, which is now a failed state, actually the second oldest state in the Americas. You see the trend, where it is going. Southeast Asia has built states and is doing very well. The point I'm making here is that we need not wait for those many years through which the other countries constructed states, because that advice can easily derail people to relax and not fight to build states. And one of the instruments for building a state in the 21st century and beyond is the Constitution. The history of state building in the past in Europe, they were using force. Today, it is not very easy to use force. And therefore, a constitution can be a tool and an instrument for state building. And what we are lacking in Africa is nation states, viable nation states. And I think that rather than discouraging people to say let them go slow on questioning how their societies are organized, we should instead be giving advice as to how the communities, the civil society, the citizens can build strong states around the Constitution and using, for example, technology. Now the Gen Z people, I think, are doing something that was unthinkable long ago. Generation Z, I'm told, it is those who can Zoom. How can we Zoom and take advantage of and leverage around technology to create nation states, and we don't go the Haitian way or the Argentinian way or any other of those failed states that have been trying for the last 200 years.
Thank you. Mr. Richard Swanyana.
Thank you very much. Sewa Chidyanga.
Sewa Chidyanga. Semwe Msoke is the problem.
Yes,
Sewa Chidyanga.
Thank you very much. I think for me, it's a small point I wanted to add around the question that we talked about earlier on this possibility of dialogue. Clearly, yeah, we are at a point where we can no longer go on with extremes and hope that when we are at both extremes, we shall find a middle ground. I think the crisis which we are in, and everybody has eloquently described it, means that there has to be a way in which dialogue happens. My view, without even asking a question, but I know that Mwalimu, who was my schoolmate for many years, my view is that one of the things we should be thinking about is what he touched on a little bit, which is the role of the elite. In many other countries, even what destroyed apartheid, what built South Africa, is a certain level of elite consensus that happened between the black and the white community, and then there was a bit of consensus that led to many things. Because things like constitutions are really built on ethos and ideologies of elites. We may say things about translating them, getting them to the grassroots, but at the end of the day, the people who make or break or who build these systems that make countries move are usually those elites. So I think we have to invest a little bit of time in finding ways in which we find elites from different persuasions coming together around the issue of how do we build a constitutional culture and constitutionalism. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's a gentleman in white tie there who will come back to the table. So, I think, yes, we will change. We will change. You were slow and. First answer it in a minute.
Yeah, sure. So we have, without a lot of elaboration, in Uganda we have Kwagalana, we have the Sipapa, Brian White, Zarian Food Figure Group, we have those who benefit from the military economy, we have the NGO community, we have NRM.
I'm waiting for SFC.
It's easy to see how the South Africans could form an elite consensus against apartheid because it was a common threat and affected everyone almost equally. But these groups that we have laid out may not be as affected by a common thing that can get them to rally around each other. So my question is, beyond abstracts, and I'm using this word carefully because a lawyer perhaps is not allowed to call constitutionalism abstract, but beyond abstracts like constitutionalism,
There is a quiet before creation, a stillness before sound. Here, in the heart of the city's hum, where dreams are stitched together, an artist is crafting moments. Moments that will one day echo far and wide. But every song, every note begins in silence. And in this silence, there is a story. A story of the heart's dance with hope, of struggle and triumph, of the highs that lift you to the clouds, and the lows that anchor you to the earth. There is a rhythm in these scales, a heartbeat in every meeting. Each decision, every compromise, it's a here where social meets passion, doubt can creep in uninvited. It whispers fears that take root and casts shadows on the dreams yet to unfold. But in the face of doubt, she rises, she sings, not because the world demands it, but because her soul needs it. This
For me, it is a long time ago. 60 years is not little. Professor, I admire you. I have been following you. But 60 years is not a very short
there is a quiet before creation. There is a rhythm in these scales, a heartbeat in every meeting. Each decision, every compromise, it's a dance with the unknown. The preparation is a constant pull.
And I know they didn't do us good. We must, if they don't love us, if they didn't do good to us, we should love ourselves and we should do good to ourselves. And we should speak truth to power. Dr. Lady, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ambassador, I've been waiting to meet you. Thank you very much. So we've got Honorable Kenneman. Just wait. There's a... You still have more? I add a minute? Please.
Unfortunately, my friend lost a mother, so I came late. So I didn't benefit from all what you, our elders, our speakers, say. But I want to talk about the issue of integration of East Africa. There is no way East Africa is going to integrate when some are Democrats, others are
Thank you, Ambassador Semba.
Thank you very much. My name is Eric Savit. I'm an advocate. I also head the litigation and the electoral commission. I had waited when personal attacks were leveled against the chairman. The Honorable Lord Chair Justice Yawakama.
But we hadn't started yet.
By Godiba. Unfortunately, the doctor is not here. But I wanted to be very express on this. Let's draw a distinction between elections conducted by political parties and the National Electoral Commission. And he gave 2 examples. On one who was distributing salt. This was not in a National Electoral Commission exercise. I thought that should come out clear. This was during the party primaries election. But even then, we need to understand the current legal registration on bribery. I happen to have, right away from the university, to have joined the electoral commission. I've getting more than 300 petitions. The test for bribery is high. Unfortunately, of late I'm doing a research on the current formulation on those principles. That the courts of judicature do not have concurrent jurisdiction. That even when you are condemning bribery, the judge cannot hand down the sentence to prevent you from contesting in subsequent election. This is what should be focusing on. But what I wanted to come out clear is that there are some activists who have made it, of course, a day-to-day activity of attacking the National Electoral Commission, even on faults done by the other players and stakeholders in their party primaries.
Okay.
Which comes from
Give me a little bit extra time because you are from the EC. What would you like us to do? In a minute, what would you like us to do?
What we need to do is look at how we deal with the law. Do we need amendments? I've already given an example on bribery. I will think that's a possibility that we can form the law that a presiding judge can be given a concurrent jurisdiction. That the moment you are proved to have participated in bribery, there and then you are added or you are prevented from contesting the by-election. But as it stands, the law is that you must now formulate a report, take the DPP, and before that, there is nothing that stops the electoral commission from nominating you.
Okay.
So we are carried on, and that is a burden, and there is nothing that the chair can do.
Thank you very much.
But also,
we run out of time. The gentleman there, you want to introduce?
Just one second.
We have so many people. We're running out of time. Yes, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Oscar. My name is Augustine Olowo, and I am an alumnus of the Hope Initiative Club's initiative. I just wanted to say this, that while the women have been represented, the elders have been represented, I want to speak for the young people that have not gotten the platform to go to that podium. And I want to say this, we have dealt very well with the hardware. I now want to handle the issue of the software. You have talked about who did what those days. For us, the young people were not there. I just want to encourage the young people here that constitutionalism can only be upheld if we make it intentional for us to learn, understand the Constitution. And it has been proven that you cannot understand something until you're part of it. Let us all embrace and become part of constitutionalism and the Constitution in this country. One, by taking up major leadership positions of this country.
Hello, Dr.
And 5 years from now, we shall come back and say they are the top 5
question.
Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, I'm sorry I was late.
Continue.
No, it's well.
Yes.
I am Rita, and
Just finish off.
I am going to project your screen very soon. And I'm also checking if you're able to hear us from the room.
No, I am here. I hear only.
Thank you.
Are you able to hear what the conversation in the room, the person speaking?
And the history is important as well. Go on.
Oh, let me work on that. So,
Hello.
Will arrive.
My name is Ajam Tabitha. I'm from South Sudan, and I'm a diplomat by profession. I had some to talk about South Sudan being admitted to the East African community, but I have a question before I go back into that. How do we make inclusivity important for all when it comes to the laws regarding relations among the East African states? I have come to realize that when it comes to our relations, it's not being feeling as though I'm a victim, but what I have realized, some of these laws are favoring other countries more than they are doing to the young nation of South Sudan. We have a saying in our language that says that among all bulls, there's one bull that is stronger than the rest. And I think in this case, we are becoming one of the smaller bulls in the crowd. So how do you help us as our brothers?
is it clear now?
Yes, but when it comes to
Thank you.
3 days ago, my sister was traveling with a small tin of gin and paste, and she was told at the border not to go, and I was saying how many times of thousands of things that enter into South Sudan, and they are not being questioned. When it comes to this side, it is next to impossible. So I think you need to address that. And I pray for a day that I get on that table of decision making, so that some of these things are implemented. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lady there. Mr. David. Can the man know that I listen to him?
Thank you very much. My name is Njira Murungi, and I'm the guild president at Uganda Christian University.
Wow. Hands up.
I was fascinated by the analogy of the wedding and the marriage, and looking at the Constitution with the eyes of the drafters. And when you look at the preamble of the 1995 Constitution, it talks about we, the people of Uganda, recalling, recognizing, and committing to exercising. When you look at that preamble and you want to look through the eyes of the drafters, how then can we look through the eyes of the drafters, yet they have literally thrown their own dream away? How are we going to look at what they intended for us as we hold it on, yet it doesn't hold any water to them anymore? And the other thing I wanted to encourage the young people, be interested in this politics, because whatever policy is meant, even on the little makeup you wear, on the little clothes you wear, be interested, because whatever policy is enacted there that you're not interested in is still going to affect you. Thank you very much.
Yes, we have someone on Zoom, Honorable Ken Luchamzi, 2 minutes, and then we have Brian Kagoro on Zoom, and then we'll have the two ladies across to the side, and then Honorable Kiza. And
Mr. MC, I am here on behalf of the Conservative Party, and my concern is derived from the majority of practical political parties. And it is directed to Honorable Mao, although he's not around. Mao's main reason for working with the government was to persuade the government to provide a national dialogue. What national dialogue was he referring to when the players, the political parties are almost in limbo? In a case of a prominence in nature, namely Human Rights Network versus the Attorney General, the Constitutional Court unanimously ruled out certain contents of the POMA Act and therefore ruled that whatever police was doing negated Article 29 1D of the Constitution. Now that we are about to go to the elections, the same court said government does not have any power to legislate any alternative law which reinstates what has been nullified. Where is Uganda going now?
Okay.
I propose that without prejudice, whether government wants it or not, the appeal of the Attorney General to what the court decided is meaningless, because the Bill of Rights, which it refers to, was already approved unanimously by everybody in Uganda. We are not going to obey police when we begin talking to the people organizing demonstrations. From now onwards,
Thank you.
government stands
Thank you.
one day.
Let's keep it constitution as well, Honorable Chamsi. So please recognize Honorable Ethel Betty Naluima. She's here. Woman Member of Parliament, Wakiso District. You're most welcome. I'll kind of go through a roll call of some people we have here. But let's go to Zoom to begin with.
Gabriel, please unmute and speak to us.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, yes, sir. Make your comment as we make the connection. Okay.
We have what here?
Hello, Mr.
I can hear you. I can tell me when to start speaking.
Sound?
Hello?
Yeah, you're right.
Hello?
Yeah, we have you. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. My apologies. I had wanted to be in the room so that I can at least benefit from the wisdom of the collective that is gathered. Unfortunately,
treated visitors and strangers with dignity. But there was a fourth cardinal point, productivity, that everybody should contribute to the sustenance of not only their family, but of the community. This idea that we get together to contribute to the sustenance of society. Lastly, the idea that all rulership and all power, that responsibility and accountability were the necessary concomitants of power. Across all of East Africa, Southern Africa, West Africa, and Central Africa, you'll find proverbs that indicate that a king's legitimacy or a governor's legitimacy derives from the people. That means satisfying the will of the people. Now, clearly, the idea of African democracy, the idea of African governance, the idea of African constitutionalism for the Bantu was based on this idea of Ubuntu, that recognized that humanity was only fully realized by the right to be, the right to become, and the right to belong. Now, I do not wish to get into what other speakers would have covered, which is this idea that the movement from imposed colonial constitutions, imposed colonial systems of government, to neocolonialism, to now has manufactured Frankensteins, which are neither traditional African nor truly European in their origin, nor necessarily constitutional. What I wanted to underscore, because this has been covered by both Minister Mao and other speakers before me, is the following. Every Western constitution, inherited or made by ourselves, is a codification of contradiction. Let me explain. Why is it a codification of contradiction? Every constitution says to you the general law shall apply, and traditional and Islamic and other laws shall be recognized to the extent that they are not repugnant to general law. What is general law? Other speakers have described to you that it is a codification of colonial values imposed or superimposed on us. And why is the law of the indigents supposed to apply only in the narrow corridor to the extent that it does not offend a general sense of civility? It is because the colonial construct of commerciality, of civility, the protection of private property was central to the thinking of original constitution. But the constitution was also about the exclusion of violence. Many of our constitutions, in the original Western constitutional texts, they had a fundamental right, which has become a problem for most of Africa. What was that right? The right to rebel against illegitimate authority. The right to take up arms in the American Constitution. In Article 25 of the German Grundnorm was the right to rebel against a government, the right to rebel against entities that give unlawful orders. And in some of the Western constitutions, it was the right to bear arms. Clearly, having come from armed struggles in Africa, such a right would have been problematic. So we emerge in the moment where the right was the right to protest. It was the right to lawful assembly, association, the right to express your discontent with the malfunction, dysfunction, and poor performance of government. We've arrived at a stage where there is neither the right to rebel underscored in the Constitution, nor the right to protest recognized, because governments willy-nilly have, in the militarization of law enforcement, taken such arbitrary acts in order to ensure that those who dare to express discontent are either labeled as terrorists or simply arrested, detained, tortured, without any necessarily any recourse to law. Understandably, there have been instances where the abuse of the right to protest by those who would rather cause violence, whether they are government agents provocateurs that have been planted, or genuinely those who believe that there is some benefit in being violent. Whichever position you take, what is clear is that there has been a mutilation of the safety valves that were inbuilt in Western constitutionalism with all its imperfections. What were those safety valves? This idea that powers needed to be separated, you needed a judicature which could pronounce itself on the actions of the executive, that you needed a parliament that could preoccupy itself with legislating and overseeing the functions of the executive. And you needed an executive that would function and make executive decisions and remain accountable to the other arms of government and to the general populace. Now we have application of a Maoist principle of substitutionalism. The people are substituted by the party. The party is substituted by the Central Committee. The Central Committee is substituted by the Politburo. The Politburo is substituted by whoever is the head of the party. Friends, the challenge is not only one of governance. I started my address by referencing to you that the fundamental human rights problems facing East Africa are the problems of militarization of state and law enforcement, but financialization, militarization, and globalization of the economy in context where hyper-informalization has been created, rendering the bulk of East African citizens occupants of the informal economy and not owners of the real economy. The few political elite that control in cahoots with external landlords the national economy have become as hostile to the poor who wish to enter the annals of national economy, the premises of national economy, as the former colonial landlords and masters were. The crisis we face is that with the consistent and constant rediscovery of wealth on the continent, and in particular in East Africa, new oil finds, new finds of new minerals, and an increased range and rate of creativity amongst the young people, there is a disconnect. And that disconnect is not just in the constitutional text, it's not just in the non-application, non-observance, and lack of respect for the rule of law. It's a disconnect between those who govern and those who are governed. It's a disconnect between ideas of the future and the future of ideas. It's a disconnect between a demographic group of young people who feel that we need to revisit the very text of constitutionalism, the institutions we set up at independence, the institutions that we seemed to believe in the 1980s. We need in the digital age, in the age of artificial intelligence, we need in the age where the average age is now 19 in Africa to rethink the constitutions, to rethink the institutions, but to rethink leadership. But it may mean having an honest conversation about values too. No one is ready to have this because those of us who are lawyers, we're part of the establishment. We're invested in keeping the values by which we are paid. Those of us who are parliamentarians, we are also invested in a particular way. I don't wish to bore you because many speeches were made. I wish to suggest to you that in a gathering such as this, where we are thinking about how to address rights, perhaps it is important for us to understand how we can creatively, proactively deal with questions of marginalization of Africa in the global economy, which is global constitutionalism, marginalization of African people in African regionalism, which is regional constitutionalism, and how we deal with exclusion of people in national economies and deal with criminalization of people within the economy, within the state, and also deal with the question of how we recreate, especially for the next few generations, institutions that actually serve them, not just replicate the sanctity of now. I will end with the following. Friends, we have 5 culprits in the room, but we have 10 solutions in the room. I said the first culprit is the colonial matrix of power that created and constructed certain things that other speakers saw. The second, it is governance and the state. The third is citizens, the disconnect that has happened between the state and the citizens. The fourth, I said, is the economy and the market. The fifth is security. The securitization of law enforcement, the securocracy in our countries, together with the rest of. But the fifth is ourselves as the legal profession. we become very uncomfortable as a profession, because it is easy to call out the excesses of the arms of government, to call out the excesses of the market. But what we have become is, as a privileged sector, is we have become part of an industry that now deprives the majority of Ugandans, the majority of Kenyans, the majority of Tanzanians, of Burundi, of Rwandans, access to any form of justice, because we've prized ourselves from access from the poor. So I want to suggest that an intellectual rethinking, an intellectual surgery within the legal profession is the only thing that can take us back onto the right course. Otherwise, we'll have a battle of ethics as to whether or not we have an ethical government. We'll have a battle of ideologies, or whether or not the ideology of development is the correct one. But what we will have missed is the battle around demographies, whether or not our ideas and the next generation ideas are aligned. Thank you for listening. And remember, redeeming African constitutionalism is not only dealing with excesses in implementing or not implementing current texts, it's understanding what were the underlying values of the pre-colonial tests and what should be the underlying values of the constitutions of the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. An interesting presentation. I do know that it has come in when our tired levels were coming in. So, but it is recorded, it is here. There will be a good time to watch it again, and because he's made very, very valuable points. Now let's have Honorable Kiza, and after Honorable Kiza, there's a small presentation, and then the conclusions from the panelists, and I don't know what Dr. Birete has planned. We thank you very much, Brian Kagoro. You know, when a leader of opposition has, a former leader of opposition has stood up, just give a second to I'd promised him to come before you because I want you to be the last one. I'm learning to speak like a politician. Is it on?
Thank you very much. Now you realize why I was complaining, because in life you don't get what you deserve, you get what you struggle for. Yeah. Because I failed to understand how the mic would come like this, pass us, go that way, until I remained standing. So this is the problem in this country. Yeah, that is the problem in this country. So since morning we've been talking about, my name is Kennedy Mutenyo from the Democratic Party. Constitutionalism. Can we, Professor PLO, can we have constitutionalism without constitutionalists? We cannot have democracy without Democrats. Since morning, a good number of people have fed us on lies. And I only wondered at the perfection with which they told lies, and they wanted us to believe them. And I'm addressing these students. This is the problem of the politicians in this country. That we have been, in the morning we were told lies, how UPC convincingly won elections in '62. Then why did they go into a coalition? They couldn't form a government. Isn't that S23's history? Now, I come to even the good major was telling us that there are two systems here. There is a movement system and a multi-party system. Who the heck has told us that this system thing is a system? We have Ugandans, we should stop being gullible. We are told lies for 38 years. Movement is a system until court had to put a stop to it. Just like yesterday, they were telling us lies that no, this lady who won in Kisoro is a member of the movement, as if there were two NRM card holding members. That is the politics we want to be told. Now they are sanitizing the whole thing. Both of them are movement. Now I come to Professor. Professor Kiza, you contradicted yourself. You started by criticizing Norbert Mao. This table is made up of people who have suffered because of lack of constitutionalism. Honorable Leandro Komakech is a former head of Uganda Young Democrats. He is also a former head of Uganda Young Democrats. Major, your people used to hit us. Who knows Uganda Matters University in Nkozi? One day they hit us from Nkozi up to Kayabwe. And they made us leapfrog like frogs. All in the name of building democracy in this country. So, I want to, it is Professor, yeah, I'm coming to you now. I was here when you made a presentation the other time. It is not true. I'm not going to call it a lie. It is not true that Norbert Mao went alone. First of all, he went nowhere. He's still the president of the Democratic Party. He went nowhere. That cooperation agreement you are talking of talks about peaceful presidential transition. We've been talking about it. It talks about electoral reforms. We are talking about it. It talks about reconciliation. Even in church, we are taught so. It talks about dialogue, what we are doing now. What is wrong with those 4 pillars? Did he go alone? No. I sit on the weekly management committee of the Democratic Party every Wednesday. That is where the proposal started. He met the parliamentary caucus. Even members of NEC, unfortunately, the 2 of them have gone. It went through. And by the way, who doesn't know that Democratic Party is a party for dialogue? Even under Idi Amin, our president negotiated and became Chief Justice only to lose his life with no grave. I do not have a father because he was killed by the UPC government. In the 60s, he almost had a permanent room in Luzira. In the 80s, they finished him off. And somebody comes to tell us, at least Cecilio Gual in 96 said, I am sorry, and we reconciled. You do not lose anything to say sorry to this country. In this room, there are people I'm not going to mention. How I wish you started speaking the language we were speaking in 94. You helped build this system we are fighting to remove. And today you sound holier than thou. Integrity. Finally, I wanted to end with the Electoral Commission. I saw that official here. Winnie, you gentlemen, all those who have stood for elections in this country, the Electoral Commission plays a very big role in election rigging, indirectly. In the DP, I am the chairman of the Electoral Commission. There was a guy, your returning officer somewhere in Ruengo, refused with no reason to nominate. That guy traveled to Kampala. I went with him to the Electoral Commission. We spent there 3 days. They had our case. They only decided in his favor 4 days to elections. Isn't that rigging? Finally, you all heard of the election of mayor in Entebbe. The present person sitting in that seat, Professor PLO, was the 4th. Because our candidate brought all the declaration forms. But what you are better than us in Kenya is if this is a polling station, the results here will be photographed. The returning officer will send them to Nairobi. Then he will take the physical copies. Here, after you vote and the results are filled in, the returning officer at the district again has a horizontal form where he fills. In Entebbe, all the DR forms of the other candidates, including the NRM candidate, had the same figures like Vincent Kayanja, except that man. But because we have very interesting courts here, he did not win the case. Therefore, for those who are criticizing the cooperation agreement, Tell us what your alternative is. Professor Lumumba asked you, what is your alternative to dialogue? What is your alternative to reconciliation? What is your alternative to peaceful presidential transition? Finally, Professor Lumumba, this is finally, and the finally that is final. There is a journalist in Kenya from Citizen TV, because I've heard many people talk about this, Sophia Anuna. Sophia Anuna, after the signing of the cooperation agreement, asked Mr. Museveni this question. He said, we hear Honorable Mao says you discussed peaceful presidential transition. And Museveni correctly said no, because they did not discuss it. The question was not as to whether peaceful presidential transition is part of the cooperation agreement. Whoever wants it, I have it here. I can give it to you. Therefore, stop telling Ugandans lies. And some of the problems we have had in this country is when the president started with professors in Makerere, gave them jobs, increased their salaries, and they messed us up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. My brother from the Democratic Party, I ride on the already set protocol to speak about around 3 things. My first thing is about what our brother is talking about in respect of Chairman Mao's electoral reforms. I expected the Chairman Mao to brief us about how genuinely he intends to make elections better. One, he didn't, to make them better, because when he was speaking about the electrification and changing the systems by ensuring that there are cameras, I saw that was not going to work. I related it with the recently concluded census. Yes, the census that just ended. The young people who were hired to do the census, majority of them didn't even know how to use the gadgets. So my question was, even when we think that the proposal he's coming up with would be a better one, how long will it take us to train the people who are going to use the systems so that we get what we want to get? The other issue I expected him to include among his electoral reforms is an issue to do with making the Electoral Commission very and real independent. Because in a situation where one of the actors is still responsible for appointing the commissioners and the chairman of the Electoral Commission, and you are expecting these people to be fair, we would be expecting too much from them. You can't just cut the hand that feeds you, and that is what they are ready to do. In fact, immediately after appointing the current commission, one of the commissioners was heard saying she has to fulfill the interests of the appointing authority. What are the interests of the appointing authority? Winning an election. And so maybe Chairman Mao needs to be reminded that another issue that needs to be dealt with in reconstructing and redesigning our constitution is the issue to do with making the Electoral Commission completely independent and insulating it. I go to the issue that my good friend Pastor Semper raised when he wanted to deal with Parliament. He said we need to review the participation of women because they came in as an act of affirmative action. While I agree that there is need to review many of the things that are in the Constitution and to see whether they are still applicable to our time, but I believe that it would be complicated to now begin measuring the affirmative action of the young people and the women. The issue that we have to deal with as a country is, yes, cutting the costs. And if we are cutting the costs in Parliament, what do we have to do? Let's do gender parity. By saying each constituency must have a man and a woman. And in our case as a country, if we went gender parity, we say man and woman, we shall have cut the Parliament by a half. And that will bring the costs of administration lower than they are currently. I hope that would also be an issue. Because when he started talking about why do we now continue keeping the women, I thought he was looking at women as if they are the problem. And there he was now breaching the contents of Article 23 of the Constitution and 21 and 33 of the Constitution, together with the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women. I just needed to let him know that. When it comes to the Electoral Commission, my good friend over there was trying to defend the Electoral Commission. And I said there are times when you just have to remain silent, take in what people are saying, and then you see how you clean your house. I have participated in many elections, and I'm just speaking from personal experience. He talked about the Lwengo incident. I can talk about the Hoima incident, where we just captured the person with pre-ticked ballots. Where I talk about the Ginger incident, where we had pre-ticked ballots in the by-election of the Honorable Nyakato, the by-election of Nabeta with Mwiru, pre-ticked ballots. And in my own election in Kasese, in 2021, where the electoral officials allowed another candidate to go and actually tick the ballot papers after an election has happened. And they caused the candidate I was contesting with to go to court to contest that the Electoral Commission did an unfair play. And the Electoral Commission conceded. They conceded, and that caused the nullification of my election for wrongs I did not commit. We went into a by-election which was so bloody because everybody knows what happened in that election. I thank the people of Kasese for standing firm. But I just want to say, Electoral Commission, you need to check your house and have it cleaned. Because when you just dismiss the issues that are very clear, go and check your house and make it very clean. I'm being told that time, let me stop here and let others speak.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kiza. I don't know how you can fit a response in 2 minutes because physically we have to leave this hall. So conclusion from Dr. Matembe first.
Actually, the talking was not directed to us. We were discussing, it was a conversation. The one point I had wanted to respond to is what Winnie has responded to. And now, that gentleman from DP said that we are here telling lies, that we are lying people. I never lie people. I spoke, and what I was speaking, but you said in the morning we lied, we told lies. So I must stand here. I don't know what even you are pointing to. Leave me talk. Okay, so I'm exonerated. Because I have got to defend myself. When you say that we were lying the whole morning when me Matemba, I never lie. Now, the other point, sir, which I want to tell you, with your DP. You know, I used to be on Mao, on NBS with Mao. And we were all talking the same language. Fighting. And you tell me for you lost it. You went with your Mzee. At least me, I have remained who I am, and I will remain who I am forever. Shortly. Woo. And now, having gone, I want you to listen. The issue are raising of dialogue. We started that issue, actually, it was Interreligious Council. After observing elections of that time, we held a meeting, a national meeting, and we came out with the issue of dialogue. I can see him not attending. Dialogue is not Mao's idea. Wamasara. is Dialogue Mau's idea. We came with the national dialogue long ago. We've been seeking for it. And now I can see, why do you give me my phone to read? I'm just replying this, yes, this man, let me reply him. So on that issue, it is not Mao's issue. And I want to tell you, UDP man, that agreement is entered into with Mao as Mao, the Attorney General, not DP, not representing DP. And then, finally, I am here. I will say what Mao is going to do to bring forward a real, genuine national dialogue that we've been asking for. Because President Museveni clearly said on TV that me entering into memorandum with Mao, no way. Me, I was taking him like I do to usually take all these people to join me. I listened to him, and that's what happened. You keep your book, but the president talked. He talked on TV, and we know he will be swallowed until the end.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is what children of the same family should do. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree. But I think what I'm appreciating is the developing culture of tolerance. The idea that I may not agree with you, but we can talk. And I appreciate that. Thank you, organizers. I want to respond to a few things. The conversation that constitutions are strange to Africa and they are imported is something I think we should edit. One of the oldest constitutions is one of Liberia, 1825. Yes, you may say Liberia was an extension of former slaves, but it's Africa. And the other thing you need to appreciate is that for a constitution to be called a constitution, it doesn't have to carry the label of a constitution. And the history of Magna Carta of 1215 is a clear indicator. Magna Carta was not called a constitution, but it's a constitutional document. So in other words, don't look for the word constitution because that itself is a colonial construct. Look for things like Ubuntu. Is Ubuntu African? Is there a word for living with others in Africa which would say don't do certain things and then do certain other things? Is it not true that each of our households has a constitution, although it's unwritten? The families where we grew up, including where I grew up, with my dad, His Excellency, as the head of state, with 2 permanent wives and a few part-timers, there was a constitution. There were laws. They were not written, but they were very clear. 11th commandment with sections and subsections. So it is not true to argue that the constitution is strange, therefore that's why we have a weak culture. We should explore elsewhere. Number 2, please allow me to point out that the Karamojong, for example, had a system of village councils, and we call them proto-democracies. Elders would meet and discuss matters of warfare, matters of growing the herd, matters of marriage, etc. But it was alpha male power. So the people who were qualified to meet in the Karamojong Elders Councils were male. So you can discuss that as an issue. Of course, we had Orukurato in Bunyoro Kitara, pre-colonial. Orukurato is parliament. The Baganda called it Luchiko afterwards. Can I quickly comment on this? I am not the Vice Chancellor of Makerere University, but I wanted to correct Pastor Sempa. Pastor Sempa is our friend. He donated some food to our starving students. How I wish he had pushed parliament. I'm the generation that resisted cost sharing. I have resisted the idea of having our children live without having a right to food in the halls of residence. Pastor Sempa donated, I think it was 200,000 or something, to provide a meal and mobilized food. So he's a friend of Makerere community. But he's not right when he says that this kind of meeting cannot take place in Makerere. It is true we have a semi-authoritarian corporate governance, but that's a reflection of what is happening in the country. And that team is planted to execute certain policies and agendas.
But it's also not true that they don't allow us to talk. I am one of the talkative persons. Well, I'm quiet, but when they invite me to talk, the Vice Chancellor appointed me to chair a committee on transforming Makerere into a research-led university. I spoke like a Mchiga. And I told him that how you cannot have a research-led university in a situation where you are suffocating academic freedoms. And I spoke on the floor of Senate and made clear recommendations. He has not sacked me. So this pastor should correct, and all of us should correct the impression. We have challenges, there's no doubt. We have some level of semi-authoritarianism, there's no doubt. But it's not true that this kind of conversation cannot take place in Makerere. We do have them. We hosted the Embassy of America on the 17th of July, and I was one of the panelists. I called President Joe Biden and Trump political dinosaurs. They changed. Biden pulled out thereafter because we were relayed live. But the point is that I have not been penalized by anybody for my academic freedom. So Makerere is still Makerere, please. Welcome to your university. And the chair is saying thank you. But there is an interesting thing that we should be able to address. And this is now, because my colleague is not being asked to come to give closing remarks. Or he will. Okay, then he will address his own point. But my guidance to my senior is that you might have to revisit. It's important to contextualize our analysis, but I think what the colleague was saying is that continuing to blame coloniality after taking the reins of power for 2, 3, 5 decades is something we should interrogate. How come, in science we say, how come other former colonies, like Singapore, like Malaysia, have been able to outgrow the chains of colonialism? In fact, Singapore is now richer than many European countries on a GDP per capita basis. Korea is now more powerful than its former colonizers in so many respects. So in other words, yes, coloniality was an obstacle, but we need to revise our relationship with that discourse, which blames everything to foreigners. And that means we should define the problem in terms of the core factors, the primary factors in our political economy that continue to constrain us. In short, we are saying science commits suicide if it becomes dogmatic. Very, very finally, this cooperation agreement, my friend is very passionate. And the cooperation agreement, whose full name is Memorandum of Understanding on Cooperation Agreement, is an important document. But it's important in that it's offering hope of dialogue. Beyond that, I guided DP that there is a distinction between a treaty of equal parties and an equal treaty. In other words, not all agreements are equal. This was a partnership which we call an unequal treaty. You see clearly, a document specifying that Norbert Mao will be Minister of Constitutional Affairs. What happens if Norbert Mao does not wake up tomorrow? DP will not have no representation in that arrangement. You do not legislate that way. At least you should have said that the president of DP will have this. In fact, don't say will, say shall. So there are huge weaknesses in that document. And please, the other problem, it is shrouded in secrecy. I met DP people, I asked, can you show, by a show of hands, how many have read this? You were there. And you didn't see hands up, except for you and the 2 others. So in other words, even DP members had not discussed that agreement. It was an elitist agreement. And very finally, I asked DP the question, was this a partnership? Or was it capitulation of DP by NRM? Thank you very much. I have no useful comments to add. By the way, very finally, my request has been that when we discuss multi-parties or constitutionalism, kindly don't forget that the majority of citizens in our country don't care whether the head of state is yellow or blue or red or black or colorless. What we care is whether you are providing things that matter. Quality education. Are you providing quality health care? Are you providing quality infrastructure? This is closing. You said we close. Oh, the room is small. Okay, okay. But I think my point is clear, at least to you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Quickly, Major asked the pointed question that he thinks that those who come into the movements are the ones who undermine the ideology. Not so. My view is that if you don't toe the line, the dominant line, then you are jettisoned. And I want you very quickly to look at what is happening within the NC, look at what is happening in SWAPO, look at what is happening in ZANU-PF, look at what is happening in SPL, SPLM, look at what is happening in RPF, and even within the NRM. When you see yourself being taken out, it means that you are no longer part of the inner core, and there is entitlement. That is why, remember here in Uganda, who is it that told John Ogola when he was presiding, where were you when we were liberating? Who was it? Secondly, if you listen to me consistently, one of the most guardedly impatient persons talking about Africa and the need for change is me. And I'm consistent about this. When I suggest that we understand context, I'm now warning myself that my sense of urgency does not necessarily represent the reality. And you gave examples of countries such as Argentina. Argentina started as a River Plate state in 1766. And as we speak today, we have seen the Peronist movement, we have seen the Kirchners, we have seen Carlos Menem, we have now seen Milei. It is work in progress. If you talk about Chile, we remember Allende, we remember Pinochet. It is work in progress. Nicaragua with the Ortegas. So when one talks about these things, one is simply saying, if you come with the intention that things are going to change, they never change as dramatically as you desire them to. Lastly, the question, and of course, I want to mention this. You talked about Haiti. Haiti has a problem that started in 1872, and the problem is manufactured externally by France, and we know, and the United States. You remember the president of Jean-Bertrand Aristide, who wanted to change Haiti. What did the Americans do to him? Right now, what is happening during the Duvaliers, Jean-Claude Duvalier, Papa Doc, and Baby Doc. So one looks at history, and one sees that there is a sense, and I want to repeat this thing respectfully, my good friend Professor. When we talk about colonization, what we are saying is that the neo-colonizer is a reluctant person to depart. Look at organizations such as the Commonwealth of Nations. These are neo-colonial institutions. The La Francophonie. Look at what has happened in Burkina, in Niger, in Mali. It is France still trying to control our colonies. And as we speak now, in Cameroon, they have posted a former war general to midwife the departure of Paul Biya. So you may think that things have changed, but they have not changed. Here in Uganda, why are you under some kind of sanctions? In Zimbabwe, why are they under some kind of sanction? Because you are meant to be a satellite state. And that is the extent to which we still say that the colonizer has not quite left. But that does not immunize those of us who have been in power from the scrutiny that we are subjecting the leaders. Thank you very much. It cannot all be done in one day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor.
And certainly it cannot be done in one day. It cannot be said all in one day. Let me now take this opportunity to invite our rapporteurs, Mr. Andrew Karamaji, who has been actually doing a lot of work with my colleague, Dr. Charles Tollett, who is our associate at CCG. Andrew, could you please come over and present the outcome document for this conference? Thank you. Let me do that. Thank you. Officially, please come and take your seats.
requesting our colleagues in IT to put up the document, please, because we need the participants to approve of the same, lest we are accused of writing our own pigeonhole constitution. Can the resolution be a bit bigger? Okay, so hi everyone, this is the outcome document in draft. It is a synthesis of everything that you've shared, or our attempt at capturing everything you've shared since morning and extracting out of it a communique that will inform our actions moving forward as the different participating groups. The document occurs in 3 parts. I'll continue as we have a better resolution. Occurs in 3 parts in the interest of time. Sure. It starts with a preamble and then goes to undertakings and concludes with definite, concrete points of action that we're going to take. So I'm going to read quickly that verbatim because of time. The preamble opens as follows, and if you have any views, comments, queries, please share them, then we will incorporate before the final document is out. We, the citizens of Uganda, variously constituted and represented as young people, scholars, civic leaders, professionals, and vocational practitioners, convened for the maiden conference on the Constitution at the Kampala Sheraton Hotel on the 15th of November 2024 under the auspices of the Center for Constitutional Governance and supporting development partners, invested in charting a path forward for the entrenchment of a culture of constitutionalism premised on engaging the evolving dynamics affecting the 4th post-independence constitution, concerned about the pressing questions of obstructed political transition, the quest for a credible elections management system, the desire for a functional service delivery infrastructure, and a people-centered economic model and nation-state that guarantee the dignity, well-being, and productivity of Ugandans. That's where the preamble ends. Now to B, which is on undertakings, we resolve and commit to 1, contribute towards building civic agency for the realization of constructive political participation. 2, encourage cross-cutting solidarity that spans multiple segments of the Ugandan population towards popular consensus. 3, promote the popularization of the notions of constitutionalism, nation building, service-oriented leadership, and the rule of law. 4, build a cadre of younger Ugandans from amongst the millennial and Gen Z categories to take forward constitutionalism. 5, enlist the participation of like-minded institutions and movements beyond those present at this conference. And finally, under this section, incorporate emerging, especially digital technologies, in our continuing efforts to attain durable constitutions and the political culture of constitutionalism. Now I'm switching to the final section of the document, which is points of action as is displayed on the screen. So these are the practical steps that we can take away from the abstracts that are above there. 1, in no particular order, evolve our popular political education to include storytelling, art, and cross-generational experience sharing. 2, document the series of injustices and use the resulting literature as evidence for when we seek redress. Undertake a voter registration drive that focuses on younger voters who are the decisive numerical majority and have a central civic role. Consciously adapt our internal programming as organizations to suit the dynamic and shifting context in which we operate. Build local, that is human and financial, resource mobilization mechanisms that benefit from the philanthropy of Ugandans, social enterprise, the business and industrial communities as a means of reducing our overdependence on foreign sources of funding and technical support. Support all efforts by other actors such as public interest litigation, peaceful demonstrations, and participation in elective politics. Explore possibilities for working with progressive actors within the incumbent political establishment. And finally, designate the Conference on the Constitution as an annual event for purposes of our internal reflection, introspection, and planning for each subsequent calendar year. The document ends by noting the date of adoption, which is this 15th day of November, 2024 at Kampala. I'll now seek the guidance of the moderators on how we collect feedback or comments and queries from the same. That's the document.
Thank you very much, Andrew. You've done quite an impressive work. I think it basically captures the essence of this conference and the conversations that we've had in a very, very precise and succinct manner. In terms of how we would have loved to deliberate this, but we would not do that today. We would share this with partners and have another conversation on this and to basically plan how to organize other follow-up activities in relation to how we want to carry on with the Conference of the Constitution, I think, going forward. Sarah, am I capturing it correctly? Yeah. Yes. So at this juncture, I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you very, very much. We should have finished this conversation by 4:30 p.m. It is now 9 minutes past 5, 39 minutes after, and I'm really, really happy that you've taken time to still be with us up to this moment. It definitely means a lot, and it also means that this is an important conversation that touches you in the heart. I'd like to now say we've come to the end. Oscar?
Yes, thank you. Just to mention, thank you very much for everyone, and especially those who stayed back to the very end. Apologies to those who didn't. Pardon? No, you will thank us finally. Oh, you are going to thank us. Don't worry about that one. So apologies to those who didn't get to speak. If you wish to ask the question and can write it down, please do so. It will go to the person. Maybe perhaps you include your email address. Electoral Commission, I did tell the Electoral Commission you came so late to wish to take up a lot of time. But next time, grab that microphone a lot earlier because you were on invitation. For students, I told the students that I'm actually in practicing teaching, and it is a Ugandan problem. Many young people, they stay silent until when it is getting to the end, and then they put up hands. So let's train to be the first ones to put up our hands. So German Cooperation, European Union, GIZ, Center for Constitutional Governance, Uganda Human Rights Commission, Electoral Commission, Equal Opportunities Commission, Uganda Law Society. We've had 4 political parties, FDC, DP, ANT, and NRM. We thank all of you. A huge hand clap for them.
We've also had students from about 25 universities represented here.
A hand clap for them as well. Did we have any other guild president, or we just had that one? Any other guild president? We had another guild president. 2? No, okay. So thank you very much. Let's have a hand clap for the guild presidents. They are the future. And then we've had Honorable, the ones that didn't get to speak, if I'm told they were here, Honorable Leandro Komakech, hand clap for him. General Mugisha Muntu, hand clap for him. Representative of a Tanzania embassy, the German ambassador spoke. Representative of a French embassy, Ms. Knoll. Representation of Uganda Parliamentary Forum on PWDs, hand clap for that one. Leaders from academia, thank you very much. Dr. Zahara Nampeo, who is from the law faculty, and other organizations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, from the bottom of your hearts, you are going to ask to appreciate these moderators who have done a stellar job with you all day. Can you all put your hands together for the moderators?
Thank you very much. And I know how tired you must all be right now. There's tea outside. You'll actually be guided on where to